Our lesson is going to be cell structure, and we are going to be studying the structure of the animal cell and the plant cell. The invention of the microscope helped scientists to discover the cell. So this invention was what allowed scientists to know that cells exist. What is this microscope? It is a scientific instrument which magnifies objects that are too small to be seen by the naked eye, like the cell. If we try to look at the cell using our eyes only, we cannot see it, and we need a microscope. And when cells were discovered thanks to the microscope, this led scientists to formulate the cell theory. Now, what does the cell theory tell us? It tells us a few very important things we need to know about our cells and ourselves. Like, for example, all living things are made up of one or more cells, which is what we discussed in the previous lesson. Whether humans, animals, plants, or microorganisms, every living thing is composed of cells. And if you remember, we said that living organisms that are made up of one cell are called unicellular, like the bacteria, and living organisms that are made up of more than one cell are called multicellular, like us humans. The cell theory also tells us that cells are the smallest living thing, the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Cells are so functional, they are enough to be living things on their own, and we see that in unicellular organisms like bacteria. Also, the cell comes from the pre-existing cell, and it divides into two, and so on. Our cells divide into two cells, and the divided cells will also keep on dividing, so every cell will come from a cell that was there before it. The microscope also allowed scientists to see that there are two different types of cell, the animal cell and the plant cell, and these cells make up all life. The animal cells are different from the plant cells, and we will be discussing that. This is what scientists saw under the microscope. This is a microscopic animal cell. If you put cells from humans or animals under a microscope, this is what you see. The pink-colored circles inside each cell are the nucleus, and here each cell divides to give two cells, and each cell from here also came from a cell before it. Now, if we put plant cells under the microscope, this is what we see. This is a picture of microscopic plant cells. We see that obviously they have different shapes from animal cells. They are stacked together differently. Their nuclei, which is the plural of nucleus, their nuclei look different, and they seem to have thicker borders than animal cells, all of which we will be talking about later on. We will now look into animal and plant cell structures. First of all, we need to realize that cells vary in structure as they are specialized to perform different functions. Cells have different functions even in the same organism. In our bodies, our brain cells are different from our skin cells, and they have different functions. And that is why they have different structures. Not all animal cells look alike, and not all plant cells look alike, and animal cells and plant cells look different from each other. But the basic components of the cell are common to all cells, in all of our bodies, in animal and in plant cells. This is a diagram of a typical animal cell. We humans have these cells in our bodies, and so do animals. So let's look at their parts. First of all, animal cells have cell membranes. These cover the cells from the outside to protect them and keep them in shape. They also have cytoplasm, which is the spaces inside the cells that are not occupied. It is filled with a jelly-like substance. You can think of it like water if you want. Animal cells also have small parts called mitochondria. Mitochondria, we will learn later, are what provides energy for the cell. And also we have in every cell the nucleus. The nucleus is what contains the DNA inside the cell. So the DNA is inside the nucleus. Now this is a diagram of a typical plant cell. Like the animal cell, it has a cell membrane to cover it. It also has cytoplasm. It has mitochondria for energy. And it has a nucleus to contain the DNA. So, to repeat, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, the mitochondria, and the nucleus are parts that both the typical animal and plant cell have in common. The plant cell also has a chloroplast. It's actually the reason why plants look green. It has a vacuole, which stores water inside and gives pressure to the inside of the plant cell. And it has a cell wall, which is this outer covering that is very hard, which is why, for example, plants are harder than our skin, let's say. So now we need to review and study these very well because we might be asked on an exam, we might be given a picture of a cell and we need to decide if it's an animal cell or a plant cell based on the sketch. Also, we might be asked to label the cells, so we need to know their parts. And also, we might be asked about the difference between an animal cell and a plant cell, which is that the plant cell has a chloroplast, a vacuole, and a cell wall, which the animal cell does not. And also, that the typical plant cell is rectangular in shape, while the typical animal cell is circular or round in shape. So, this ends our lesson of the structure of cells.